Good evening. Thank you for joining me here on the Royal House of Ra. I am your host, Ramses Khufu El Ra, and today's episode is episode 29, The Rise of the Persian Dynasty. Now, this dynasty, the 27th dynasty of Kemet, is a foreign dynasty. It is the Persian dynasty that expanded into Kemet, its dominance over Kemet, and we're going to talk about its rulership of Kemet during the time. And there was 6 pharaohs of this dynasty, and we're going to get into that. But before we get into that, I'd like to give a thanks to all those who support the show here. Continue to support the show. Please like, because that helps with the algorithm, and also subscribe and hit that notification button so you know when new shows will arise, and share the content as well. I hope everyone had a great weekend, and I hope that you will have a great and wonderful week as well. Now, you know, every week we have 2 shows on Monday and Thursday. For the remainder of this series, the Pharaonic series, I'm just going to have the shows on Monday at 5 p.m. Central Time. So there's no longer going to be a show on Thursday. The next show that will appear will be on Monday, April 25th, 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and 3 p.m. Pacific Time. Okay, so the shows is only going to air once a week, and it's going to air on Mondays at those times that was given. Okay, so now let's get into the show. Before we start, what I'm going to do is give you the date that this dynasty was established, and also give you the names of the pharaohs of this dynasty and the years that they reigned. Okay. Give me a moment, please. Alright, Dynasty 27 was established in 525 to 404 BC. The pharaohs of this dynasty was Cambyses II, who reigned 525 to 522 BC. Then Darius I, who reigned 521 to 486 BC. Then Xerxes, who reigned 485 to 465 BC. And then Artaxerxes I, who reigned 465 to 425 BC. Then Darius II, who reigned 423 to 405 BC, and there's no cartouche for him. And then Artaxerxes II, who reigned 405 to 359 BC, and there is also no known cartouche for him as well. Okay, let's get into this. The Persian conquest of Kemet in 525 BC was not so dramatic an occurrence as the biased contemporary accounts would have us believe. The Xerxes dynasty had collapsed. That was under Cambyses III had been captured, and the Agamite Persians, led by Cambyses II simply took charge of the country. At the beginning of Book 3 of his Histories, Herodotus, writing only 3/4 of a century after the event, tells 3 curious stories as to why Cambyses invaded Kemet. All concerned women. One was the king's request for a Kemetan princess for a wife, in reality a concubine, and his anger when he realized he had been fobbed off with a second-rank lady. The second saw Cambyses of the Persian king Cyrus, bastard son, by Netetis, daughter of the Seti king Apis, thus making Cambyses half Kemetan anyway. The third tale concerns a promise Cambyses, aged 10, made to his mother, that he would turn Kemet upside down to avenge a slight paid her. Herodotus expresses doubt concerning all 3 stories, but they do reflect the later Greek propaganda that was to color views of the Persian dynasty. More to the point and more accurately, Herodotus notes how the Persians easily entered Kemet across the desert, having been advised by the defecting mercenary general Franz of I'm going to try to pronounce this here, Halicarnassus, Herodotus' own home city, to employ the Bedouin as guides. The Kemetan revenge of Fens for betrayal was dire. As the 2 armies confronted each other, his sons, who had been left behind in Kemet, were brought out in front of the Kemetan army, where they could be seen by their father, and their throats were slit over a large bowl. When they had all been killed, Herodotus tells us water and wine were added to the ghastly contents of the bowl and drunk by every man in the mercenary force. Wow. They didn't play back in those days. The Kemetans were routed in the subsequent battle and fled back in Memphis. Herodotus gives at length the tribulations suffered by the captive Xerxes and his family, as well as the outrages perpetrated by Cambyses. Not least among them were the discretions and deliberate burnings of the embalmed body of Amasis, ripped from its tomb at Sassus, and the stabbing by Cambyses of the sacred Apis bull of Memphis, leading to its subsequent death. The high propaganda level of such stories may be judged from an inscription in the Serapeum, the burial place of the Apis bull at Memphis, recording the burial of a bull with full honors in Cambyses' 6th Persian year, 523 BC. After his initial military success in Kemet, Cambyses had little further luck. Legend tells of his losing an entire army in the desert on its way to Sawa oasis, and alleged traces of the lost army are still reported from time to time in the press. Although Cambyses had his name written in a cartouche, he remained a Persian and was buried at Tekat el-Rastam near Persepolis. Only the ruined platform of his tomb survives. Cambyses and the rest of the Persian dynasty ruled Kemet from Susa like absentee landlords, leaving a satrap in control. Okay, so some of this stories that they talk about the first pharaoh of this dynasty was kind of like propaganda. Some of it could be true, and some of it may not have been. But there is a Persian, Sicilian, and Babylonian British museum. There's an image of him hunting a lion. Now, most kings in that time, especially Persians, they did hunting, and they hunt lions and stuff like that. But let's get into Darius I and see where his reign went, and then we'll go into the other Persian rulers of this time. Okay, Darius I succeeded his father in 522 BC and took a closer interest in the internal affairs and administration of Kemet. He had one satrap executed for overstepping his office, built a temple at Karkal Oasis, and repaired others as far apart as Basras in the delta and at El-Kab just north of Aswan. Not least, he recorded on a large still now in Cairo his completion of the canal from the eastern delta at Pelusium to the Red Sea, begun by Nikel II. The 35th year reign of Darius I, who, like his father, wrote his name in a cartouche, was one of essential prosperity of Kemet, despite her now being subject to many outside influences and the politics of the Mediterranean world. In 490 BC, the Greeks had against all odds defeated the Persian army at the Battle of Marathon. Darius' attentions were elsewhere, and in 486 the Commetans took the opportunity to revolt. Before Darius could suppress the insurgents, he died and was buried in a great rock-carved tomb in the cliffs at Nakesh el-Rastam at Persepolis. The revolt was put down with great severity by the next Persian king, Xerxes, who himself had to contend with the Greeks again, but this time at sea, at Salamis in 480 BC. The cruelty of the Persian satrap Achaemenes, Xerxes' son, only served to rouse the Commetans to revolt once more when Xerxes was assassinated. His successor, Artaxerxes I, thus found himself opposed by the princes Inaros of Heraclius son of Artaxerxes III, and your let me pronounce this name. Give me a moment. Eurystus of Salis. The former became a legendary crusader in later folklore, recorded in several demonic papyri. The latter's grandson was to be the sole king of the 28th dynasty. Despite initial success with the aid of Greek allies, the combatants were defeated and Inarus executed in 454 BC. Relative tranquility then ensued for the next 30 years, and the reign of Artaxerxes I, 465 to 424 BC, left little mark in Kemet. Revolt broke out again with the advent of Darius II, 423 to 405 BC. Although he did endeavor to woo the nationalistic elements by selected building works, the trouble spots were still concentrated around the Delta families, Sardis being a particular center, much as El Kab had been centuries before in the Second Intermediate Period. Okay, so during the reigns of Artaxerxes I and Darius II, and also Xerxes, there's been constant revivals of revolts to cast out the Persian invaders of Kemet, to reinstall the last Kemetan dynasty, which was Dynasty XXIX, where there were still members of that royal house trying to remove the Persian invaders and other Kemetans who at that time was trying to free Kemet from the Persians. But they had little success, but not enough to really push the Persians out, even though the Persians at this time was having the problems with the Greeks, mainly the Macedonians. Greeks, as everyone know, when Macedonia, when the Greeks and the Persians fought, and this is the period when soon Alexander the Great, would be a figure in this battle between the Persians and the Greeks. Okay, so let's get into this. The Kemetans relied heavily on Greek mercenaries, and curiously, centuries later, the Athenians were to recognize Xerxes as being particularly associated with Athene, and Athene of Xerxes even appeared on the known coinage in Roman times. The Kemetans were able to take advantage of the murderous internal family problems of the Achaemenid royal house and maintain a quasi-independence during the reigns of the last two Persian kings, Darius II and Artaxerxes II, 405 to 359 BC. So there you have it. This is the first foreign dynasty, the Persian dynasty, which is the 27th dynasty, and their reign in Kemet was not a peaceful one. There was constant revolts. The indigenous kept fighting them. At this time, they kept fighting them, but they weren't strong enough to really uproot them and kick them out. But they kept fighting, and then at the end of this dynasty, the indigenous were able to have somewhat of a quasi-independence, but that did not last for too long. And then we're going to talk about the dynasty afterwards, Dynasty 28. And we're also going to discuss Dynasty 28, Dynasty 29, Dynasty 30, and the second Persian dynasty, Dynasty 31. That would be in episode 30, and that would be on Monday, April 25th, at 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and 3 p.m. Pacific Time. So, thank you once again for tuning in to the show. I hope you enjoyed the show. And please, if you want to leave comments, leave comments. If you want to comment on today's show or previous shows, or want to know more about certain events in Kemet at this time, let me know, and I will review the comments and talk about those comments in the next show, which will air next Monday. So enjoy the rest of your week. As I stated before, please support the show. Please subscribe. Please hit that like button. Please hit that like button. And because this is free, it's not, you're not paying anything. And thank you for your support. And have a blessed day. And God bless.